I'm a 13-year-old female, and it was only a few ago months when this happened. I was on a hockey trip with the rest of my family. I don't play, but my siblings do. I'm generally a quiet person. I have social anxiety and don't react well to situations with people complimenting me or anything. My family had just pulled into a rest stop I was already familiar with. I was walking in to go get a drink with my little sister, who is 9, when she ran ahead of me. I didn't care much, but I wish she had stayed by my side, because not even a few seconds later, a Caucasian man who looked to be in his mid-40s honked his horn at me. I instantly jumped back because I was right next to his car, which was a red 4-door sedan. He started telling me how pretty I was and how I should hop into their car. Being the unsocial person I am, I walked away with no reply. I ran inside to go meet up with my little sister. I'm pretty close with her, so I laughed about what just happened and told her. We didn't think much of it and left as soon as we came. The man made crude gestures to me as I walked back to my other siblings. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother. My brother is pretty intimidating and 16, while my other sister is 15 and not intimidating. They both play hockey and are stronger than me. My family drove off and started to go to the hotel we were staying at. It was an hour or 2 away, so after a while, we stopped at another rest stop so me and my siblings could stretch. I had already forgotten about the encounter with the man when I noticed a car pull in. It was a red 4-door sedan. I didn't mind much attention to it at first until I walked into the restroom area. A man followed me in and just sat on the bench like he was waiting for someone. Wanting to avoid eye contact or talking, I pulled my little sister next to me and just spoke about video games with her. I waited until she was done to walk out with her, but my mom walked in and told me to go back to the car. I always avoid talking to strangers, and I get really nervous if someone even says hi to me, so I avoid any contact with people. As I was walking back out, the man followed me. He was around the same height as me. I'm 5 feet 8 inches. He walked next to me and whispered into my ear something along the lines of, "You would look good tied to my bed." I don't completely remember what he said. I just tensed up and ran for my car, jumping into the back seat. I was scared now, but because I was an idiot, I only texted my friend about it. She told me it was some random creep and to not worry about it. I did as she said and forgot about it. I thought that was it for the encounters. Once my family got to our hotel, we only checked in and went to the ice rink. We took longer than we thought, so we had to be at the rink immediately. I began to forget the man again. It was the start of the second period, and I was sitting outside the actual rink with my sister. I don't bother watching, at least not until now. My sister and I were playing some multiplayer game when a man sat right next to me and asked what I was playing. I got extremely uncomfortable and moved away only to have him move closer. He began asking me if I had a boyfriend, and I just pointed to my ear to pretend I was deaf. It was pretty stupid looking back, but I had a plan if he believed me. I don't know much sign language, but I know enough to pass a lie. Sadly, he didn't buy it and continued to ask. I stayed silent, ignoring him, until he put his cold hand on my thigh. I was wearing leggings, so I felt how cold his hand was. I jumped at it, and he in turn squeezed it. In the game my sister and I were playing, we could message things, so I quickly looked at her and wrote in the chat of our game, "Ask me to go to the bathroom with you." She looked at me and realized what was going on. She walked over to me and told me she had to go to the bathroom. We hid in the bathroom for a while until the game was over. I didn't see him till the next game was going, which was the next day. My sister had a fever the day the game was, so I volunteered to stay with her at our hotel. I only really did it to avoid the man again. It was a few minutes later, and I heard a knock at the door. At this time, my little sister was downstairs getting breakfast from the hotel. I assumed it was her and opened the door. I hated what I saw instead of my sister. It was the same man as before. I was horrified. His face had a horrible grin on it. Before he could say anything, I slammed the door and decided it was a good time to call the police. I was crying at that point as I sat against the door and called the police. They arrived shortly after, and the man was arrested. It turns out he had been taking pictures of me the whole trip. He had been following me the whole time, even when I was swimming with my siblings. From then on, I don't ever walk alone. I hate it. I just really fucking hope to never see him again. It was the second scariest thing in my life. This happened when I was 11 years old and in the 6th grade. I was a quiet kid, usually listening to my teachers without saying much. One day, during my 6th period, which was gym class, we were doing laps. As we reached the end of each lap, we'd make a turn near a large fence. While I was running, I noticed a man who looked about 30 years old, standing by the fence. He was waving with a strange grin on his face, but I couldn't tell who he was waving at, so I kept running. After gym class ended, I packed up and got ready to go home. As I walked toward the gate at the front of the school, I saw the same man again. This time, he wasn't grinning, he was smiling, which made me feel uneasy. I started to walk faster because I was getting scared. Once I was a good distance away from the school, I looked back and didn't see him anymore, which made me feel relieved. While I was walking home, a blue car pulled up beside me, and the driver rolled the window down just a little. I couldn't see his face, but I heard his voice. He said, "You look like a nice and smart kid." I smiled and said, "Thank you." Then he said my full name, which shocked me. I asked him how he knew my name, and he rolled the window all the way down. It was the same man with the creepy smile from earlier. Panicking, I ran as fast as I could. I glanced back, and his car was still there, but I kept running. I was only 5 minutes away from home, so I didn't stop until I got there. When I finally made it home, I was sweating and shaking. I quickly locked all the doors and windows before collapsing into bed, trying to calm down. Later that night, I woke up feeling thirsty. It was 11:32 p.m., so I got up to get a glass of water. As I was grabbing the water from the fridge, I suddenly heard a knock at the door. Curious but nervous, I went to the window to see who it was, and what I saw made my heart stop. It was the same man, standing outside, holding something in his hand. I couldn't tell what it was because the outside lights were off. Terrified, I ran to my parents' room and started banging on their door, waking them up. My dad was angry at first, but I told them there was a creepy man outside our house. My dad went to check while I stayed with my mom. He didn't see anyone at first, but then he heard a noise. He rushed back to us, and suddenly, we all heard a loud scream. My mom immediately called the police. When they arrived, they found my dad holding the man down. He had a kitchen knife and had been trying to break through my window. The police arrested him and took him away. 2 days later, the police informed my dad about what had been going on. The man had been stalking me, watching me every time I walked home from school, and even spying on me through my bedroom window. I tried telling my friends about it, but none of them believed me. I'm 14 years old now, and I often think about what could have happened if I hadn't woken up that night. If I hadn't told my dad, that man might have broken in and killed me. When I was younger, I'd go visit my grandparents all the time. They lived in a one-floor house with an unfinished basement. I never liked it down there. It felt small for a big basement. There was a little door down there that was for storage, and I always got a horrible feeling when going close to it. And let me add that this was a newer house that was about 6 years. Now, during the time I was about 6 or 7, I felt so uncomfortable going down there. Even when I was with someone, I didn't like it. I remember going down there with my grandma to help with something. She had to run upstairs because someone rang the doorbell. She said she would be right back, even though she knew how I felt about being alone down there. But I nodded and said, "Okay." She was gone and I was alone, and I started to get a bad feel in the pit of my stomach. I didn't move and didn't want to. Even though the lights were on now, this is where everything started happening, and it still gives me chills. The lights started to flicker, and I started to hear noises and what sounded like talking, and it was not coming from upstairs, but in the storage room. I heard someone say my name. Here is the part that freaks me out the most. The voice sounded like my grandma. I was confused as hell. How am I hearing her when she is upstairs? I didn't want to move, but me being the curious one I am, I started moving towards the storage room door. The closer I got, worse the bad feeling came. When I got to the door, the lights turned off in the basement. I wanted to run upstairs and hide, go home somewhere that wasn't the basement. I heard my name again for the second time, my grandma's voice asking me to open the door to help her. So I did, and I regret it. I couldn't see anything. It was pitch black. I couldn't hear anything but faint laughing that felt like forever. But then the laughing stopped, and the lights turned back on in the basement, and I felt a little bit better with the lights back on. But the downside, I could see a little in the storage room. I saw a small clown doll in the storage room, and my grandma hates clowns with a passion and wants nothing to do with them. So why is there a clown doll? I have no damn idea. Then the lights turned on in the storage room. I saw red that looked like blood all over the place. I screamed and blacked out, and the next thing I knew, I was laying on the couch, my grandma looking at me and asking if I was okay. I have no idea if that was real or a dream, but it sure as hell felt real. If you have any ideas, please let me know. I was 16, and me and my friends, I'll call Evan and Jake, wanted to rent a hotel for the night since it was spring break. We got to the hotel and checked in. It had a really funky smell, but we still stayed there. Once we got to our room, it was about 3 p.m., so we decided to go swimming. The pool was downstairs, departed from the hotel. Once we got to the entrance, There was a man at least 6'3" in all black with a hood covering his face, facing us. I panicked a little, but not out loud. We got into the pool and swam for a few hours until we saw that man again, all black, sitting on a chair by the pool. I cleared my throat. Can I help you, sir?" I asked. No response. I still was a little paranoid. I put my face in the water, and at the bottom of the pool was another figure that was all black. I screamed like a little girl and ran for the door. I looked back and saw nothing, not the guy in the chair or the guy under the pool. My friends thought I was just seeing things, but I saw what I saw as clear as water. I didn't feel like swimming anymore, so I decided to get dinner at a nearby restaurant. I got a table for me and my friends to sit at, and there I saw once again the man all in black on the other side of the dining room and was staring at me. I have had enough. I went over there and I lost track of him, and he took off. After that, I decided this trip has gone too far and we should leave tomorrow morning, but my friends didn't like that idea. Once it was 10:30, I and my friends dozed off in the hotel room. I woke up to some noises. I saw a shadow of a figure at the end of my bed. I calmed myself down and told myself that it was my hat that I put there before I went to bed. I went to bed and got woken up again 30 minutes later to more noises. I was getting thirsty, so I reached under the bed and tried to grab my water bottle, but I grabbed something and I was totally shocked by what I grabbed. It was my hat. I was not ever more scared in my life. I couldn't help but to scream at the top of my lungs when I heard a voice next to my ear say, "You're a bitch." I jumped out of bed and realized it was two men in black right there. I tried to fight them, but it was no use once they grabbed me and dragged me out of that room. I tried to scream, but that guy was covering my mouth. I passed out and woken up in a stretcher. It turned out those guys knifed me while I passed out, and someone caught them. But the doctor said no one could catch the guys who got me. To this day, I always have a nightlight at night, so I'm not scared.